Hi, I'm Joel Friedlander from thebookdesigner.com and bookdesigntemplates.com. Welcome to this webinar presentation called How to Create Book Covers That Work. And before we go any further, I want to answer the question about the kitten, because people always ask me when I do this presentation, what the heck is the kitten doing there? And I'm going to admit to you, the kitten has nothing to do with book covers, but it helps to demonstrate the idea that you need to grab people's attention if you hope to have them pay any attention to your book. And so it's clearly an artificial device to make you look at a cute kitten, and that's what it was intended to do. Now, book covers are really important to indie authors. A book cover is the brand of your book. It's going to represent your book out in the marketplace. It's going to help to identify your book for your target audience. And you've put a lot of time into your book, but you really do need to have a good book cover to make an impact on readers. Now, ideally, you want a book cover that attracts exactly the right people, the people that you wrote the book for, to it. And of course, we want our book covers to look really good. There's no reason why any indie book should be published with a book cover that can't stand on a bookshelf or appear on a web page right next to a book from a big publisher and look just as good and do just as good a job. So that's what we're going to look at today. Now, I'm not going to be able to teach you how to design a book cover because that would take more like weeks, and we only have a short amount of time together today. And I don't think it's really important for indie authors to know how to design book covers. It's much more important to understand why they work, why they fail, and how to evaluate the covers that you're looking at. So we want a book cover that really works because that's going to help you sell books. So I'm going to talk about why book covers are important, why the ones that don't work fail, how good book covers overcome these obstacles. Remember that it's fine, since this is a webinar, you can get up and stretch. I hope you have your favorite beverage, and let's dive in. So, do book covers really matter? I think book covers have 5 main tasks to do if you actually broke this down. First of all is to announce what genre your book is. Look, there are hundreds of genres. There are a lot of readers that read one kind of book and not other kinds of books. It's really super, super important for your book to let people know instantaneously what genre it is. Now, for a fiction novel or a memoir, we want to communicate somehow the kind of tone of the writer's voice. In nonfiction, we're looking to explain somehow on the cover what scope, what area, what time period, or what subjects that the book addresses, and we'll see examples of this as we go along. Obviously, your cover has to generate some excitement for the people in your target market. If it's not exciting, if it's boring, they're just going to keep going right past it, and they'll never even read your great words. And I'm going to talk about this later also. This is a subject that most indie authors don't give much attention to, but you should be very aware of what position your book holds in the market. And an easy way to think of that would be to imagine you walking into a bookstore, a really, really big bookstore, and asking the bookstore manager, suppose you're talking to the bookstore manager and they say, well, where should we shelve your book? And maybe your book is a romance, so you head over to the romance shelves, and then there's going to be a lot of books there. Where would your book fit in? Is it a modern romance, a historical romance? Is it a vampire romance? Is it a sci-fi romance? I mean, all of these books occupy different positions within that one big category. So when I say to announce what genre your book is in, like you just saw a cover for about 3 seconds, but I bet that everybody who's watching this webinar knows already exactly what kind of book this is. And of course, the designer here didn't leave it to chance. They put the big word "a thriller" right on the cover. But obviously, the big bold type, the angle that exaggerates the movement quality of the type, the slices through the type, the bold colors, this all tells us that this is a thriller. On the other hand, this book cover is a cross-cultural romance. It's also a fairly nice cover. It gets its message across pretty convincingly. It tells you kind of what it's about. So in this one example on the screen, we can see covers that are really aimed at completely different audiences, and the audiences who read these books will recognize them right away. That works to your advantage. Now, when I said the tone of your book, that's a little bit more ephemeral, but if you think about it, here are two books with kind of similar color schemes, dark red type, this kind of cool background. So what messages are we getting, really? Well, in Charon's Claw, we know that we're going to get kind of an action adventure. There's blood on the snow. There's going to be battles and swordplay and fantasy, demons. On the right, we have a contemporary romance set in a small town. So I think that these covers do telegraph something about the tone that's in the books. And we'll see more examples of this as we go forward. Now, when I said scope, this mostly relates to nonfiction books. For instance, this book is 50 Things to Do When You Turn 50, and it has all the names of the contributors. But I mean, it's telling you exactly what to expect. You're going to see activities here. They're going to be oriented to people who are about 50 years old. There's no mystery what the scope of this book is. Also, here's a book with a rather ugly cover. I'm not recommending this style, but I do admire the fact that they have pointed out exactly what's in the book. They have a big label up in the top right corner that says pre-K through K. So this is obviously for people working with very young kids. And down the bottom it says the name of the book itself, Busy Hands. It gives us a clear indication of what we're going to find. And sure enough, it has over 185 fine motor activities, as that bullet point says. And listen, putting a lot of copy, like all those names of the authors on 50 Things to Do When You Turn 50, or a bullet list on Busy Hands, that really can work well in nonfiction, depending on the kind of book you're publishing. Now, communicate something exciting. And I see I have my animations backwards here. But both of these books have a strong hook. The novel on the left, Darkness Falls, the entire hook is in the gaze of the woman looking back over her shoulder at us, and her holding the scabbard and just about to pull that sword out. She's framed by that beautiful framing device of the round window with the moon beyond to draw our eye into the action here. We don't know much about what's going on, but obviously something very important is going to happen right now. So that's really a hook. Now at full throttle, I think that the hook here is pretty clear. This book is going to appeal to anybody who's interested in guys with great abs who ride motorcycles. And there's that, if you had any doubt, the Publishers Weekly starred review quote that's been pulled out here is simply the two words red hot. So the hook here is pretty evident, and anybody who reads these kind of books is going to see it right away. Here we have something more about positioning, and in fact these are both romance novels. The one on the left gives us all the cues we need to know that this book is a historical romance. We've got a woman in a period dress. It's a deep red, kind of implies a certain kind of passion. She's in the grip of her lover. There's this period scenery behind her, and even the typeface is chosen hark back to an earlier era. So that's all very clear. On the right, we also have a romance, but this book is an urban romance that's very modern. So we have a very modern kind of piece of artwork with the see-through, the see-through guy with his suit on. And it has a completely different appeal. The typefaces are much more modern. So both work, but they are different within the romance genre. So they're positioning themselves. They don't want to be like the book Hero doesn't want to be mixed up with the historical romances. So these clear signals are really important. Another way to position books is with branding. This is a series of books from Vivian Narend. And obviously, if you liked Rocky Mountain Heat, you're going to probably like Rocky Mountain Haven. And the identical design of these books helps to emphasize that point. We also notice, since people who read these series are going to get hooked on the author, they're very prominently displaying the author's name right at the top. And I think this is really solid branding. And you could see this like every time, let's say, John Grisham comes out with a new book. His publisher is going to go back and reissue all the earlier books with new covers that are all in a complete series. They're all going to look exactly the same with different visuals, just like this series. And that's going to help sell earlier books. So that's also a chore that your book cover has to do. Now, I think when you look at covers, and people who know me and know my blog at thebookdesigner.com know that I run a monthly cover design contest for ebook covers. We've been running it for over 5 years. We get hundreds and hundreds of submissions. So I've just been looking at thousands and thousands of indie authored covers. And I think I've pretty much broken it down into what the unconscious reactions are that we have when we look at book covers. And this is super important for authors and self-publishers to understand. Like, first of all, we want to know what is going on here. Just orient me. What am I looking at? And that quickly leads to the second unconscious response when we say what kind of book this is, and that's what I've been talking about genres. And that, of course, leads me instantly to, am I interested in this book? So these things happen very fast. We don't really, it's not conscious thought. It's just a process we go to, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to see how this plays out. And one of the ways we're going to do it is by seeing when book covers fail. And there are a few quite common reasons. I see them over and over and over again. So why do books fail? One reason is because they're illegible. Now, this cover is really pretty dreadful, but I wanted to point out that it commits one of the common problems, and that is they try to, when an author tries to put dark red type on a black or very dark background, this really creates a reading problem. It's hard to make out what it actually says. You can see the same effect happening here. I mean, the most important word on the cover of this book is the word geek, because that's really the thrust of the book. This is a book for people who are baseball stat geeks. And yet the word geek has been placed directly over the most prominent features of the illustration, rendering it almost illegible. That's really not a good solution. Okay, what's another reason that book covers fail? Now, if you completely disregard the genre you're publishing in, that's going to be a fail. I'm going to show you a cover for 2 seconds, and I want you to see if you can deduce what genre this book is. Okay, so you saw it for a second or two, and realistically, you know, when the search results come up online, when people are looking for books, how much time do you think you're going to get? So if you thought that book was nonfiction, a legal book, or an instruction book of some kind, you are wrong. This is actually a science fiction novel. Unfortunately, no one would recognize it as a science fiction novel. Want to play again? Here's another one. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 seconds to look at it. Okay, so what do you think that book is about? Most people would guess it's a book about gardening. And I can almost guarantee that this picture was taken in the author's garden. But you would be wrong if you thought it was a book about gardening or a book of poetry. This is actually a vampire romance. Now, it was pointed out to me by my partner, Tracy, that vampires don't even appear in daylight. They're completely nocturnal. So in this case, this cover design completely disregards the genre it's in, and nobody who reads and loves vampire romances is even going to give this a second look. That's not a good thing. What about books who just simply have no hook? Here's an example, 75 Degrees with a picture of a tree. I mean, would you like to say what period this book takes place, what it involves? Is it romantic? Is it historical? No, it's about as interesting as the weather report. Hey, it's 75 degrees. Okay. Here's another example of a book with basically no hook, just a lot of random stuff thrown on a cover, escaping from reality without really trying. I have no idea what that means. The picture is very murky. It's indistinct. There is nothing here to make us interested or excited at all. It's no hook, folks, and that's not a good thing. Another reason covers fail is because they're simply incompetent. I'll give you an example. Here's a self-published book that displays the common problem. I call this the pasted on effect, where you get a picture of something and then you start pasting other stuff on top of it. I would also say this book is typographically incompetent because there was no reason to make it so hard to read. It doesn't make any sense. Here's another one. No, I love dogs. I'm a dog guy, cat guy. I have 2 dogs in my house. I love dogs on book covers. Look at the kitten on the front of this slide deck. But you can't do that to type. In other words, the title has been squeezed really badly. It's almost tortured to fit into this space. And the subtitle is a typeface that features bones in every letter, making it really hard to read. So these aren't good solutions. And that's why we're going through them. Now, you can also create confusion with your cover instead of clarity, and a clear message is really important. So here's an example where authors frequently think they have to put significant events or objects on the cover of the book, disregarding the fact that the person looking at the book hasn't read it yet and won't have any idea what these things are. So the author might think, well, I have to show that teepee where they had their first romantic encounter. I have to show the fort where he was held prisoner. I have to show that sword that became so important later in the book. Plus, let's use lots of different colors. And not only that, let's put lots of ornaments around the title. It's very confusing. Likewise, Quinn's Undying Rose. I mean, where are we supposed to look? What is all this stuff? There's no real rhyme or reason to what I'm looking at, and just the amount of objects and effects and glows around the type, and it just makes it very confusing. I'd also like to pause here to note something else about covers. You'll see on both of these covers there's a line on the one that says best-selling author, and on the other one it says international best-selling author. Unless you can put down on your cover something like New York Times bestselling author, USA Today bestselling author, Detroit Free Press bestselling author, or maybe here in my neck of the woods, the Marin Independent Journal bestselling author. In other words, if you're not specific, don't put this on your cover. It makes you look very amateurish, and that is not going to help you. And the same thing for international best-selling author. It's completely meaningless. I also don't recommend you use Amazon best-selling author because that is not going to impress many people. Let's keep going. Now, we've looked at a lot of problems that I see on book covers over and over again. And when I evaluate these covers, when I'm judging a competition or working on my ebook cover design awards, I mostly use these tools of contrast, focus, and positioning to figure out where the problems are and how to correct them. So let's see how that works on some real examples. Now, contrast can be a contrast in size, like something small and something large. Contrast of color, a light color and a dark color. Like, for instance, on this screen, the background is extremely light and these words are black. That's very high contrast and it makes it easy to read. You can also have all kinds of contrast, but contrast helps increase the drama of your cover and it points people to what's important that they should be paying attention to. Now, as far as focus is concerned, we want to know what we're supposed to look at and why. And how do I know whether this book is for me? Now, it's the designer's job to let people know what they're supposed to look at, to give them a takeaway, and obviously to identify the book as something of interest or not. Now, we also want to talk about positioning. And I talked about that a little bit earlier, and that means identifying what the range of the book is or the specific audience it's for, if it's intended for a specialty audience. All of these things help you position the book, and this also helps to make your book cover more effective. Now, here's the old problem again of putting the dark red type on the black background. And also what we see here is dark red type running over both a black background and a very light background, which is visually confusing. I like to contrast that cover with this one, which is really well designed and very similar. You know, they're using similar typefaces. They have one main visual element. And on the Queen of Diamonds, we can see that the designer has darkened the bottom third of this image specifically to create contrast. So the white on the black background really pops off. It's very visual, whereas the title on Dining with a Vampire is hard to read and disappearing. Now, this Queen of Diamonds cover is really quite a good book cover. The hook is really evident in the woman's expression, the action that's going on, and you kind of want to know, hey, what's going on here? She's a very attractive woman. We could tell it's historical because of the dress, and it just creates a lot of excitement. The other one just creates kind of a confusion in my mind, and it really isn't very effective. We can also look at how fonts can help contrast. Now, here's a book with a not very effective cover. These are, and it's always hard to do cover designs for books that are compilations or anthologies. It's very challenging. But the problem here is with the fonts that were chosen. This font is really what we call a text font. And we use that for things like we want to read, like a newspaper, the inside of the book, you know, actual reading text. But really on book covers, we tend to want to use display fonts, which are intended for headlines, titles, and they have more of an impact. Now look at this cover with a really terrific font that was chosen to emphasize what kind of book it is, to create contrast with the background. And it's an example of a really well-chosen font for that book cover. So fonts can help with contrast too. Now, here we are back with The Bride Wore Flowers. And I'm using this book because this busy background really makes you lose focus. You don't actually know where you're supposed to look. Are you supposed to look at the people, the teepee, the fort? I mean, it's very visually confusing. Now, here's an example of a book cover that really, although it has a detailed image, it's really overcome the problem of busy background. The designer has intentionally simplified the background by lightening it. Also, we see that the light background and the black type creates really good contrast. And it leads us right down to the image. If you read the 50 Greatest Love Letters of All Time, your eye ends up right at the point in the image where the person is writing. And that really emphasizes the whole idea of love letters. Somebody's writing with a pen on a piece of paper. And, you know, it really represents in a very simple way what the book is all about. So I think that stands in real opposition to busy backgrounds that you don't know exactly how to look at or what they're trying to tell you. Now, here we're back with Quinn's Undying Rose as an example of an unfocused, busy cover that doesn't give you any help about what it is you're supposed to be taking away from this cover. Contrast this to a cover like Sweetness. Now, the designer here has very adeptly controlled our eyepath. In other words, it's virtually impossible to look at this cover and not travel right out that perspective of the pier, which intersects directly with the horizon. Right there, the designer has put the object he wants you to look at, and that's that couple. So when we see Sweetness and our eye is drawn instantly to that couple out on the pier, that is exactly what I'm talking about. The designer has masterfully told us exactly what he wants us to know about this book and what you're going to find inside. There's no guessing involved. Now, here's another example of kind of disregarding the genre. We could guess what this book is about. It might be a history book, but I'm here to tell you it's actually a historical romance, although it doesn't look that way. Here's a book that's right dead center in its target audience. It's a thriller by a very well-known author, and the typography, the colors used, and that little strip of story in the illustration, the man in the hat walking in the kind of hazy street scene, really positions this cover beautifully within its genre as this kind of international thriller. What about, here's another one. This is another example of books disregarding their genre. Lady Iona's Rebellion looks to me like a history book, but it's actually a historical romance. Now, you would think for a romance you would need 2 people minimum, but on this cover, really, it looks like art history. Here's an example of a historical romance that really tells you what's going on. Now, the title of the book is Unlocked, and here the designer has really created a beautiful cover with this rich red gown. It gives us an idea of the setting, but look at the way the whole design focuses us right on that key. Obviously, the name of the book is Unlocked, so this is perfectly on point. It lets us know exactly what we're going to get and what kind of book it is. And I think that really helps. Now, this book has a really good hook. And both of these covers have good hooks. I'm going to show you. This book is called Self-Help for Stoners, Stuff to Read When You're High. And listen, the target market for this book, they're going to recognize this cover instantly. It's got that big marijuana leaf on it. It's got the kind of psychedelic covers going on in the title. And, it's just saying, hey, if you like this kind of stuff, here I am. Now, what I find interesting is here's another cover that's really very well targeted and very hooky. I mean, when you see this, if you like these kind of bloody thrillers, then you're going to want to know, hey, what's going on? The hook here is that bloody handprint on the wall. And when you see the padded cell, the bloody handprint, and that crowbar in the shadows, you know that you're looking at a really kind of violent thriller. So if that's what turns you on, this cover lets you know instantly this is the kind of book you want to buy. I thought this was interesting because both of these covers were actually designed by the same designer, which shows that, really good book designers can work in multiple genres. If you communicate clearly what it is you're trying to do, they will come up with a solution for you. Okay, so we looked at the jobs a cover has to do, and it really is going to pay to get it right, and I'll tell you why. I'm a member of the Independent Book Publishers Association, otherwise known as IBPA. And if you are want to be a professional author publisher, I highly recommend checking out IBPA. It's a great organization with lots of benefits. One of them is they publish a monthly magazine called The Independent. I've been reading it for years, and frequently they ask members to write in with stories about what's going on. And over the years, you see story after story of publishers with a book. I just read one recently, a publisher with a cookbook. It was selling okay. It wasn't really doing that well. So they went and hired a really good cover designer. They put a new cover on it, and the sales just started to take off. This is not an unusual story. So does it make a difference? Yeah, it really makes a difference. Now, we've seen that when the covers fail, it's because they're illegible. They just totally disregard the genre expectations of their audience. They're boring. That is, they have no hook. Or they're just simply done by somebody who has no competence at graphic arts or book cover design. And keep in mind, book cover design is really a specialty. If you go to a graphic designer and ask them if they can design your book, they're going to say, sure, no problem. I haven't done one before, but, I'm a designer. My advice to you is to not hire that person, to hire somebody who is a specialist at book cover design, because it really makes a difference. Now, I've told you that I use these tools of contrast, focus, and positioning to try and get that inner dialogue, the unconscious dialogue, working in the right way for you. What's going on here? What am I supposed to get from this? And is this book for me? And you can use these tools to accomplish that aim. Now, the best book covers make an offer to the reader, and that is exactly what the designer's job is to make that apparent. Now, this is maybe confusing, but what I mean by an offer is, for instance, if you're writing, light comedies or cozy mysteries, you're promising a certain kind of light entertainment. That's the offer of your book. You're going to get a few hours of amusement. Maybe you'll get some laughs, and it's like going to a movie, only better, because you create the movie in your own head. If your book is a how-to book, then the offer of the book is really clear. You'll know how to do something you don't know how to do. So every book has an offer. And if you're curious how this is done or how it's presented to the public, take a book you have on your bookshelf, flip it over and read the back cover. The back cover on any well-published book will cook down the offer of the book to its essential ingredients. It's going to tell you what it is you're going to get from the book. Somehow graphically visualizing that and presenting it on the cover, that is a large part of what our book covers need to do. Now, I have a few covers here I want to look at with you because I think all of these, by the way, I think are very effective book covers. I don't have any losers in this collection, but I thought the contrasts are good. You can see here on these two book covers how big an influence the type fonts that you use have on the look of the cover. Obviously, the one on the left, The Baron's Betrayal, is another historical mystery, and all the visual cues tell us that, and these very kind of classic fonts have been used. Whereas in Ugly Love, it's a very contemporary book, and we have very modern typefaces. These two books are both good because I like the way they target their audience. If you like Western novels with a romantic element, if you like cowboy fiction, well, heck, how about putting a cowboy on the cover? It doesn't get more obvious than that. And here again, we have fonts, particularly the font used for the word gone, that allude to that Western aesthetic. The Girls of Mischief Bay, with the visual of the three girls sitting on the beach and the kind of lighthearted treatment with the ornaments around the title, really communicate well what audience they're aimed at. These books are aimed at completely different audiences, and they're both done very well. Now, we don't always need visuals on book covers if we have a very strong concept. And both of these books show that you can make a very successful book cover with no images at all. I particularly like the signal and the noise because the actual design of the cover expresses what the book is about. You know, there's the signal and the noise, and the way the type is colored and arranged expresses the theme of the book graphically, and I think that's very effective. And the End of Your Life Book Club is just such beautiful typography that it really works well, and there was no more ornamentation needed than a row of diamonds and the way that the designer has manipulated the color values. So I think those are really very good. Now I got two more for you, and both of these also show something really interesting. Lunatic Fringe was an early winner in my ebook cover design awards, and what I really, really liked about this was both the composition of the cover, the big, huge moon, and the way the dark forest is indicated, and the action of the girl running with her wolf. The other thing I liked was that the artist actually drew the entire cover, so it gives it a kind of unity that it's hard to achieve any other way. On the other hand, this early paperback cover for Jurassic Park, and this was designed by Chip Kidd, probably the top cover designer in the United States recently. What I like about this is the economy of it. If you can imagine a piece of white paper, this is just printed with two colors, red and black, and yet it couldn't work any better. It really makes its point. The T-Rex skeleton is sufficiently terrifying, and the tremendous contrast of the big white type on that red background really makes it pop. And I think that's very cool. Now, this is a book that was published by Seth Godin under his Domino imprint. And that's why there's that domino in the bottom right corner. But, you know, I put this in to show that there are covers that break the rules and still work. In other words, who wrote the book? What's it called? What's it about? We have no idea. In fact, it's a book called Poke the Box. And it's actually a good small book. And Seth was able to break the rules because he is a direct marketer. And he knew how to reach his audience. And for people who don't know Seth or aren't being marketed to directly, you know, the cover really creates a certain amount of intrigue. Like, we'd like to know maybe what the heck is that about. And I think it actually works. And it worked in his particular context. If I was designing a book cover that was solely going to be sold retail, I don't think I would do this approach. But since he was really selling a lot of these direct, then, hey, Seth Godin, he can get away with it. Now, I put this cover in because we just experienced the launch of this book. It was probably the most incredible book launch I have ever seen in my life. The design of books like this is really kind of secondary to their effect. But, you know, having looked at a lot of covers, you can see right away that the designer, even though I would call this design brutal, knows exactly what he's doing because he knows his audience. And anybody interested in this stuff who looks at this cover knows instantly that they want to read that book. And in fact, millions of copies of this book were sold very quickly. It's not particularly beautiful, but it doesn't have to be because the designer understood who he was designing it for, who he or she. Now, there are more things you need to really have a good cover. You need a really good title and subtitle. And if you are a nonfiction author, you want to make sure you have some keywords in your subtitle. If you're doing a print book cover, it has to match the specs that your printer needs, like for CreateSpace or Ingram Spark, or for an offset printer. Everybody has very specific requirements. You need to have great marketing copy on the back, that back blurb I was talking about. Testimonials are good, and you want to make sure that your cover is useful in all different formats, print, ebook, audiobooks. Now, I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff today, but it's important to know. Now, The fact of the matter is that doing a cover design, going through the process of hiring a designer, talking about concepts, doing rough sketches or preliminary designs, picking out a design, getting to the finish, and then getting your final files, believe me, this can take weeks and weeks and weeks. It's actually fun. I'm doing 2 covers right now like this with designers. But realistically, this could take 4, 6, 8 weeks. Just depends on the kind of time you have. And also it's kind of expensive. I would expect today for indie authors to be paying somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for a book cover that's really professionally done. Now, sometimes people don't have a budget for that, and I understand that. That's the exact reason why we started doing interior templates for people who just couldn't afford to get their books typeset properly. But, that doesn't mean you can't get a good cover on your book. You don't have to settle for just getting a stock photo and slapping some type on it, because that's not really what makes a book cover. Also, you might need it just faster than that. So we've come up at Book Design Templates with a new service specifically for people who would like a book cover that's really good and effective faster and for less money. So our new service is pre-designed book covers, and we have almost a couple of hundred of them available on our site, Book Design Templates, and this is brand new. We just launched this week. And here you can see 8 different fiction-oriented covers. You can see that we partnered with an award-winning book cover designer named Tanya Prokop. She is extremely skilled, and I think you can tell just by looking at these covers that they really do solve the problems that we've been talking about. And you can see there are a lot of different genres here. Here are more genres. Tanya is really adept at creating different kinds of styles for different genres. And obviously you can see these are generic in the sense that many of them say author name. Here are some of our nonfiction book covers, and I have to say, I find these to be quite workable covers. I particularly like the belly fat effect, although I think it would be hard to substitute if you had a different kind of title. But in any of these cases, these book covers can be used for your book. And let me tell you a little bit about how that works. These covers are all unique. In other words, Tanya designs them. We put them up on the site. If you buy one of these covers, we take it off the site. We're never going to sell it to 2 people. So you'll never see one of these covers on your book and somebody else's book. We retire them instantly when they're sold. And that's a problem. You really need to know, like if you're buying a book cover package of pre-designed covers, a lot of other people are buying that package too. So it's quite feasible, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if you were to find that same cover on 1, 2, or more books. Hopefully it wouldn't be in your same genre, but I'm kind of thinking it would be. I don't think that's a great solution. So our idea is that we sell the cover, that's it, it's over. Now, a lot of those pre-designed book covers, when you buy the package, you get downloaded a huge amount of Photoshop files. And you have to get Photoshop, and you have to figure out how to use Photoshop to get your customization done. Yeah, a lot of authors aren't very comfortable with that. They don't own Photoshop. They have no reason to buy Photoshop. So in our way of working, we actually do all the customization for you. So you never have to touch Photoshop ever. You just let us know what your title is, your subtitle, your author name. If you've got a series brand to go on there, send us that, and we will customize it and send you the finished files ready to upload. Now, the prices for these covers start at $99, and we upload new ones every day. There are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens on our site right now, but as people buy them, we retire them and we put new ones up. And we have three different ways you can buy a cover. You could buy a cover just for an ebook. That's the $99 price. If you're going to do both ebook and a print book, we'll do the whole print cover, which is a full wrap, the front, the back, and the spine. And that's $199. And we also have a package with the ebook cover, the print book cover, and a bunch of banner graphics sized to be used in social media, like on your Facebook page, your Twitter, whatever. And that whole package is $299. And even with that, we're still below the price of even the least expensive professional designers you can hire. Now, this is really, really important. When we sell you a cover, once you've paid for it, you become the owner of that cover. The artwork on the cover, all the rights to the cover, that's yours. We yield up that, and this is really important. I'll tell you why. I one time had a client who had a romance book, and it had an illustration that was done specifically for the book. The author hired an illustrator, did the illustration, and she did a print book. And then the print book really started to sell, and she had to go back and do another printing. And all of a sudden, the illustrator said, wait a minute, I licensed that art to you. I didn't sell it to you. And if you want to use it again, you have to pay me again. So you can see this is really a bad situation to get caught in, where you don't own the rights to your own book covers. I don't like that. When I design books for people, I give them all the rights to everything I've done so they can be a free agent and do whatever they want with it. You know, you asked me to do it, you paid me to do it, I did it, here's the rights. So we decided to do our covers the same way. So you never have to worry about somebody coming after you for more usage rights or telling you you can't do something. Not only that, when you buy one of these covers, we'll include mock-ups for marketing purposes that you can use, and that would be like a 3D version of the cover. You could see all of these covers at our site, bookdesigntemplates.com/covers. I think this is a fantastic offer. Now, some people aren't going to be able to use it. I totally get that. I tend to do custom design covers for my books. But you know, if you're a novelist and you're turning out several books a year, or if you're stuck for time, or you just don't have the money, or maybe you're going to go over and look at this gallery of absolutely gorgeous book covers and you're going to say to yourself, hey, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to hire a designer. I could just download one of Tanya's covers. We deliver these covers, by the way, with your full customization. For an ebook cover, it's going to be about 24 hours. And for print book covers, unless you get very complicated with your back cover text or stuff like that, you should have those in 48 hours. So you might just fall in love with one of these covers and decide, hey, I'm just going to use one of Tanya's covers, and bingo, you've got a beautiful book cover that will be unique to your book at an incredible price very, very quickly. So I would suggest you go over to bookdesigntemplates.com/covers and check this out. All of the details about the 3 different packages are there, what's included. You'll see exactly what you get. You're going to see many, many examples of these fiction book covers in different genres, nonfiction book covers, and you'll get the whole lowdown on how it works. It's very simple. It's easy. You go through a quick checkout process, and then you'll get an email from us asking for specific information to do your customization. And so it's a tremendous solution. I'm very happy and proud to be able to offer these covers along with our very, very popular interior book templates that have really helped thousands and thousands of authors publish more quickly and for less money, and to get a really cool industry standard book into the market. If you put one of these covers on it, man, you got a winning package. So I hope you'll go over there right now to bookdesigntemplates.com/covers and check it out. And thanks for paying attention during this whole presentation. I really appreciate it. Now, because this is a launch, we're simply launching this site for the first time, I'm going to make you a special offer. I'm recording this on Friday, And if you buy one of our covers today, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, before midnight on Monday, I'm going to give you a coupon that you can get a free interior template. And those are $59. We sell them all day, every day at $59. So this is a really cool opportunity. You can get a book cover, and you don't have to do the customization right away. If you just want to purchase the cover, we'll take it off the market, off our site. And if you need a few weeks or even a couple of months before you get back to us with the customization, that's fine. You'll still be able to get your coupon for a free interior template. Now, we've got fiction templates, we've got nonfiction templates, we've got templates for children's books, we got templates for poetry books, photo books, almost any kind of book you can look for. We've got beautiful pre-designed book templates that work in Microsoft Word, and we also have templates for Adobe InDesign if that's the kind of book you're producing. We've sold tens of thousands of these templates. They run beautifully on CreateSpace and Ingram Spark, and they will create for you an industry standard book. We have complete instructions on how to do them. Trust me, they're really, really reliable, and it's just a great product. So think about it. Take advantage of this launch offer. This is going away Monday night at midnight. Buy any one of our pre-designed book covers, ebook and print, or that special package where you get the social media graphics, and you will get on Tuesday an email with a coupon code to use to get a free book interior template off our site. Hey, I think that's a pretty cool deal. I love giving stuff away. I love helping authors publish quicker, publish better books, and save some money at the same time. What's the matter with that? So thanks again for sticking through the whole webinar, and I will see you next time.